Hey guys, it's the MetalBlade 5, and welcome back to another MetalBlade Fury. As I said at the end of my Silex Fury, the next Fury was going to be fitting for when it comes out, and that's because I had another horror-related Fury planned for Halloween. Rather than my typical Furies where I look at parts of the game or other form of media, this one is in regards to a fan-made thing, I guess. As the majority of Animal Crossing New Leaf players will know, there is a very unusual town created by a Japanese player called Aika Village, which can be accessed through the game's Dream feature. This town is really messed up, and has become widely known amongst the Animal Crossing community as a result. Aika Village is set out to tell the story of a girl named Aika, of course, but the exact story is unknown, as it is told through various in-game objects and the rooms of each of the town's houses, which is completely left up to interpretation, and even the creator of the town has said that it's up to others to interpret what the story is. Because of this, there have been many fan theories and speculation to find out the truth. Now, interestingly enough, I actually discovered Aika Village before Animal Crossing New Leaf even came out in Europe, since I came across a video by a Japanese YouTube channel which played through the town, and even translated what the text said, and when I watched this, I instantly thought of my own idea for what the story could be. And I have never seen anyone else present this idea, so for this theory, I will be explaining what I think the story of Aika Village is. But before I get started, I want to make one thing clear. Aika Village has been updated by the creator various times, and I have never accessed the village myself, so some of the things I say in this video may be a bit outdated, but for the most part, everything has remained the same in the village. So upon entering Aika Village, next to the bed you wake up in, there is a present which contains a dolly, and this dolly plays a very important part in the story and in fan theories, but I'll cover that a little later. Around the area you enter, the trees are filled with perfect peaches and carnations are planted everywhere. But then this area is also where you encounter Aika, the girl who the story focuses on. As the creator has placed 4 player houses in the village, that means that there are actually 4 Aikas in the village. However, they are all supposed to be just one character. It's just that each Aika reflects her feelings at different events in the story. All the first Aika says is, "This is inside of my dream," which appears to just act as a welcoming to the player rather than giving any details on the story. When we enter the first house in this village is when we start to learn details of the story. In the house's living room, you discover the scene of a birthday party in which the birthday girl is represented by a mannequin wearing the same clothes as Aika, meaning that this is Aika's birthday. However, you'll also notice that a drawer is blocking the way to the back room. If you go upstairs, you can find Aika's bedroom, which consists of paintings of her and her parents, who are most likely the people with her at the birthday scene, along with presumably her mother, since it matches the mother in the first painting, and a dog in its doghouse. But next to these paintings is the same dolly I mentioned earlier. Once again, all this stuff is important for later. After crossing the only bridge in the village, things get very different. Gone are all the beautiful trees and flowers, and instead is a maze made of bushes which contains pitfalls, many dropped sweets, and dying trees. In this area you can find the town hall, in which the village's flag is the same as the painting of Aika's mother, with a megaphone on the ground just in front of it, which many people interpret as her calling out something. Just east of the town hall you can find a cemetery, where all the graves have the dolly buried underneath them. However, in earlier versions of Aika Village, you could find dog houses here. To me, this suggests that the dog went missing, which would explain what the mother is calling out to, and that the dog died. To the southwest of the town hall is the second house in the village. The main room of this house is organized like a maze, where you need to use the stools to get around, and in the right room you can find a bunch of owl clocks looking left and right between 2 statues. One has angel wings, while the other has demon wings, plus there are balloons here which may call back to the birthday party. A lot of people interpret this as indecisiveness between good and evil, but I also have another interpretation for this, as long with that. In the left room, you can find the dolly looking over a shark tank with a statue of a woman standing behind it and roulette wheels constantly spinning around. And in the back room, you can find a bunch of dolls and toys, including the dolly, facing away from you. But if you turn the camera around, you can find a pair of eyes watching them. Then upstairs, you surprisingly find a room representing Adam and Eve, along with the snake and the forbidden apple. And in the basement, appears to be another kind of party, with the guests being represented by dolls. but the red dolly that we've been seeing actually has an axe behind it. Again, most of this stuff is important for later, but with the dolly holding the axe, it's time to cover one of the major fan theories around the village. Many fans speculate that the dolly is actually an evil possessed doll that is potentially a murderer and is trying to make Aika evil. However, I actually believe that there is nothing supernatural going on in this story. My reasoning for this is an idea that came to me when I first saw Aika Village. I believe that the doll is supposed to represent Aika herself. Aika and the doll wear similar clothing, which wouldn't make much sense to me if the doll was a separate being. Through this, I think the doll is actually supposed to represent how Aika is feeling, and in this instance with the axe, I believe that it shows Aika becoming angry and possibly lashing out at someone. Some people do think that Aika may have received this doll on her birthday, if they are separate beings. However, we never actually see Aika receive the doll, as it isn't located anywhere in the birthday room. With this, I can also cover another major part of this house, being the Adam and Eve room from before. This takes me to another major part of my interpretation of the story, being that I believe that Aika's parents may have gotten divorced, and this had a negative effect on Aika herself. This room is supposed to represent peace, like the Garden of Eden. However, the snake and the apple shows that something is about to go wrong. I think that Adam and Eve represent Aika's parents before getting divorced, when everything was happy, like we saw in the birthday room. But what event could have caused them to break up? I believe that it had to do with the dog's death. By the town hall, which is before the house when traveling through the town, it shows that the mother was trying to find the dog, and it's possible that Aika's father may have been responsible, such as being careless and accidentally letting the dog run away. But why exactly do I believe Aika's parents got divorced? Well, again, this has to do with what I thought when I first saw Aika Village, being that at the time of the video I saw, Aika would say, "I love my mommy," whenever you spoke to her. But she never mentions her dad. She even made a painting of just her mom. This made me think that Aika and her mother may have been close, but she wasn't as close with her father. And this takes me back to the room with the owl clocks. I think the owl clocks represent Aika, and the angel and demon represent her mother and father respectively. Not necessarily saying that her dad is evil, but she sees her mother in a more positive light, and that Aika is trapped in between them, which could possibly represent Aika's parents fighting for custody over her. Also, to top it all off, the second Aika in the village says, "Your voice reaches no one," which could possibly refer to Aika trying to stop her parents getting divorced, but her attempts appear to be futile. Moving on through the town, you can find the ground covered in spoiled turnips and dead bamboo shoots with weeds, dead trees, and rubbish located to the west. In this location, the third Aika says, "The scenery was always impure," which contradicts the area at the beginning of the village where everything was perfect. Going along with my idea that Aika's parents are getting divorced, it may be causing Aika to think that they were never happy to begin with. Also, getting back to the perfect peaches, in Japan, perfect peaches are seen as a sign of immortality, which could represent Aika thinking that her parents would always stay together, but now that they're getting divorced, it changes her view to see the complete opposite. In the third house, which appears as a rundown shack, we once again have a maze, but this time it's made up of bookshelves, and the doll now has the axe in front of it, which could mean that Aika is becoming more aggressive. In the corner of this room, you can also find a painting of Aika and her mother, but her father is nowhere to be seen, which again goes back to Aika having more of a connection with her mother. In the room to the right, you can find a piano with a bunch of Fabergé eggs in front of it. Some people theorize this to be a representation of parents wanting great expectations from you, and I agree with this, but not in the same way I've seen others interpret this. I've seen some people theorize that Aika's parents pressure her into playing the piano, but since Aika thinks highly of her mother, I don't think this is the case. I think that it's actually Aika's father that's pressurizing her, but not her mother. In my idea that Aika's parents are getting divorced, I think that Aika's father won custody of her, and thus Aika was separated from her mother, in which her father pressured her into playing the piano due to having high expectations for her. Following this idea, this was kind of foreshadowed before in the room with the eyes, which I think represents Aika's father watching her to make sure she gets everything right. In the back room of the house, you can find 2 diaries in glass cases and ripped pages all over the floor. I think this goes back to Aika viewing her parents' marriage, aka the scenery, in a negative way by ripping out all the happy moments from her diary. Also, there is a music box which plays a remix of the song Hypno KK, which is the song that was playing at the birthday party, which to me is supposed to show that the pages are referring to happy memories like the birthday. Upstairs, you can find a really creepy scene of the doll watching static on the TV, objects being covered in the design of the paintings of Aika's mother, her family, and the dog, which to me shows Aika feeling all alone, except for her thoughts about the past, and the static showing that she's unsure what to think and what will happen next. Finally, in the basement, you find what appears to be an adult's room, but the bed has what looks like a chalk outline showing that someone is dead. At the back of the room is also a picture of Aika's mother, which makes me think that sometime after getting divorced, Aika's mother died in wherever she was living now, and in turn this meant that she could never visit Aika again. Getting through more of the decay in the village, you can find the final Aika who says, "This fun dream is ending," which could be directly talking to the player about being in the dream and that the story is coming to an end, but could also mean that happy times are ending since her mother is dead. Then we reach the final house, which is designed to look like Aika's house at the beginning, but with everything messed up with the room that the birthday scene took place. But it's covered in rubbish and the furniture is being moved around. This includes the drawer that was blocking the way to the back room, which allows the player to see what is back there. This back room has a mannequin representing Aika with the doll and the axe being trapped behind fences with statues watching them. I think this is to show Aika feeling trapped due to pressure from her dad, and the doll once again representing her anger. Lastly, if you go upstairs, you can find Aika's room from the beginning, but the paintings are scribbled out, the toys are facing away, and the doll is once again holding an axe. Again, I feel like this represents Aika's anger and that her memories have been tarnished by the fact that she's crossed out the paintings of her mother and the dog, who I both believe to be dead at this point, and then Aika herself is crossed out in the family picture, which may suggest that she feels that she was never important to her parents and that she couldn't stop them getting divorced. Now that all the houses have been covered, the only place left to go is the beach. On the beach, you can find a pair of red shoes, which obviously refers to Aika since she wears red. Now this is something that would go over the heads of most Western players, but due to the fact that I discovered this village on a Japanese YouTube channel, they actually explained what it meant. In Japan, it is common courtesy for someone to take off their shoes before committing suicide. This is obviously meaning that Aika has killed herself, but interestingly, this was actually foreshadowed earlier. Back in the second house, if you remember that room with the shark tank and roulette wheels, I believe that this was hinting at this event. It has the doll, which I believe to represent Aika sitting over a shark tank, in which you can find sharks in the ocean in Animal Crossing, with a statue of a woman behind it, which I believe is supposed to be the spirit of Aika's mother. Also, I think that the roulette wheels are supposed to suggest Aika being conflicted with herself on whether she should go through with it, a bit like deciding something with the flip of a coin. If you manage to obtain a wetsuit, you can also swim to a separate part of the beach with a grave. If you dig at this grave, you find a skeleton, and digging one space left of it, you find the doll. I believe this to be Aika's grave, and the doll is there as a confirmation that it's her. And to further drive this home, there is also a 4-leaf clover nearby, which, in Japan, 4 is associated with death, since the Japanese words for 4 and death are pronounced the same. Also, to the right of the grave, there is a time capsule which you can't open, but I think it shows Aika's memories and feelings dying with her as well. So there you have it. That is my interpretation of the story of Aika Village from when I first saw it, and just throwing in what I think the stuff added in later means when following my idea. Unlike others who believe that the story is about a killer doll or Aika being pressured by both her parents, I think it's about a girl who was separated from her mother by divorce and death, and was forced to live with her more strict father, and thus felt all alone and pressured, so she committed suicide to escape it all and possibly be with her mother again. But of course, that's just what I think, and everybody can have their own interpretation. And similarly, as I say at the end of these videos, this is just a theory and not fact.